I think many companies go wrong. They tend to over-engineer things, over-analyze things. You don't need to do that. As a founder, you trust much more in your gut and what you see. You speak to the customers, you learn. So that's how we realized who our ICP was. It wasn't like a deep analysis or anything like that. We knew who the customers were because we were speaking to the customers on our support channel every day. So we knew it was product managers. We knew it was customer success managers, right? So we didn't need to do a deep analysis to find out who the ICP is.
Welcome to Thrivecast, and with me here today in the studio we have Esben. Sorry, Esben, if I kill your name, I'll try it. Esben Friis-Jensen. Am I doing good?
Yeah,
all right. So Esben, has been a CEO and a founder. So he and his co-founder Sebastian built Userflow, and this is an awesome tale of how both the founders built Userflow. They went from $0 in revenue to 4.6 million and getting to acquisition from Beamer. So Esben, welcome to Thrivecast.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick background about Esben, and maybe Esben can also talk a little about it. He's been a serial founder. He's been 2 times founder. I know his previous company, Cobalt, was doing penetration testing as a service. In fact, my previous company had used that service as well. So I knew about the company, not so much as him. I got referred, talked to Esben from, a close group of folks who, been in constant contact on the PLG space. So Satya Gani, who's the Beamer CEO, he referred me to that, hey, we've acquired Userflow and you guys should talk to each other. And that's when Esben and I met about a month and a half back. And since then, I've been following him on LinkedIn and various places. So congratulations, Esben, on the acquisition.
Thank you.
Esben and team actually built user onboarding as a service, which if you think about it from a hindsight standpoint, in the last couple of years, there's lots of companies around self-service, building self-service as a service, onboarding as a service. There were companies like DOPT, companies like AppQs, which became much, much bigger, but they were all themselves not very PLG in the beginning. But what interested me with Esben and Userflow is they were PLG from pretty much day one. So they built a very simplistic user onboarding service where the end users can come in, try, and buy directly from the product without talking to them. It's also very interesting that they went from $0 of revenue to 4.6 million in a span of about 2.5, 3 years time with a 3-member team. And that's what caught my attention. So Esben, maybe if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, tell a little bit about what Userflow is, and then tell the backstory about how you and Sebastian met and how did Userflow came into being.
Yeah, I think you already did a good job covering a lot, but basically Userflow is a company that allows you to build in-app onboarding, in general in-app content, using a no-code builder. So if you're a product manager or customer success manager, you can basically use it to build content inside your own SaaS product without involving developers. So that's of course great. And we founded the company back in 2019. Sebastian had built another business, and that business was doing sort of okay, but he was not getting a lot of traction. But as part of that product, he had built product tour inside the product, and more people were asking, how did you build that product tour, instead of asking him about the actual product he was doing. So he started investigating the market and analyzing the market for solutions that could actually build what he had built as a developer, and he couldn't find a solution that could do that, built with that level of sophistication. So he decided there's a gap in the market. I want to build that solution that can basically build in-app guides with such high sophistication and also make it easier to build. And that's where I then joined up with him to lead the growth side. So Sebastian is the developer. He's also the CEO of the company, but he's a fantastic developer, one of a kind really, who can pretty much build everything. And Sebastian and I, we know each other from San Francisco, so we're both Danish. I built, as you mentioned, Cobalt in the past. And Sebastian was actually one of our first customers with his SaaS product back then. He built an accounting platform for the Danish market, and that's how we met. So we met in San Francisco, we stayed friends and stayed connected, and then we talked more and more about doing something together, and then the right opportunity basically came around.
That's a wonderful, probably love at second sight kind of story that I've seen. So tell us a little more about Userflow. You mentioned that Sebastian started encountering this problem of how to build onboarding for his own product, and then eventually he decided that why don't we build this self-service as a service or onboarding as a service and make that as a product itself. why did you decide that? How did you go about maybe building your product in the very first place? I know that you had to lay, you and Sebastian had to go lay foundations around, hey, this is how we want to go to the market. This is how we want to enable, our end users to come, who was the ICP that you were targeting. So tell us a little story about why did you go with building with a PLG first approach, rather than, your previous company was not. Your previous
Yeah.
company was more sales led. So how did
Yeah.
this idea of we should build Userflow with the PLG first approach came into being, and what did you do to get there?
So from my perspective, Cobalt, yes, was a sales-led company when I left it, but we actually started out as a product-led company when we founded it. And then as many other SaaS businesses that were founded in 2013, we switched to a sales-led model. I still see that happening today. Many
Yep.
companies start out product-led and switch to sales-led because they kind of get too interested in the big checks, and they forget all about the customer acquisition cost that actually gets them there. But they will be reminded about that in the future, and that's what we were reminded at Cobalt, because we had built such a heavy sales-led culture. But then we started realizing now the market had matured. Not a lot of guidance were no longer needed for especially the small customers who had very simple use cases. But we still required a salesperson, a customer success person, and so on to manage those small customers. Cobalt actually set out to become more product-led. So they built a project to change towards being more product-led, exactly to reduce the CAC and service costs for this smaller segment. So that was one learning I had, that product-led is important. You shouldn't forget about those roots. So that was a big reason for why I wanted to build that product-led business. From Sebastian's perspective, so as I said, his prior business was an accounting company. And the funny thing about accounting companies is that, yes, they're B2B, but in many cases they are almost like a B2C because they're selling to very small businesses. So they're like selling to one-person businesses and stuff like that. And in that world, you basically can't be sales-led. If you are, then it's too expensive, right? So he just didn't think about it. When he was building a product, it was natural to him to do a free trial, do a self-service, because that's the world he came from, that kind of B2B but almost B2C world, right? And I think if you look at the B2C world, that's how it is, right? You would never think twice about it having to be self-service. But in the B2B world, you definitely think that you should have a demo form instead or something like that. So those were the two backgrounds we came with. So one, I wanted to go back to the product-led roots, and Sebastian really, he always been in the product-led world.
That's very interesting. And then it was a two-people company in the beginning at that time, right? And then you added a design or a UI person. So could you maybe share a little more about how did you formulate this three-people team? Right. I know you were focusing on the external customer conversations. Sebastian was your primary developer, and then you had the third one who was more of the UX and the UI person as well. So tell us a little about how did you manifest the self-service infrastructure? Maybe I know I've seen probably an article from you some time back on the PLG stack, but that's a very strenuous list of tools out there. How did you go about building it?
Yeah, no. So first of all, the product-led starts with your product, right?
Yeah.
So without a strong product and without a free trial motion or freemium motion, that's the foundation for any product-led process. You need to have a strong product that's easy to use, and then you basically have a free trial or freemium. So having a strong developer like Sebastian, he could build that, right? So he built a strong product, easy to use, easy to get started. And then, with a free trial, we have a 14-day free trial. So that's kind of the foundation. And then on top of that, what I came in to do was basically to add on top of that. So the first thing we added was, of course, to add Userflow on Userflow, to use our own product to onboard users onto our own product. So kind of meta. But the cool thing about that is that you both onboard customers inside the product, but you're also actually showing off your own product to users. So we have that luxury that we can actually do that. So that was the first thing we added. The second thing we added was email onboarding. So automated email onboarding, basically emails being sent we use Intercom for our support and email messaging. So we send automated emails from Intercom. And then the third thing we had available was support chat. So basically Intercom chat, where customers could always reach us. So I would say that was the foundation. We really had those four things, and very much to this day is still the foundation. Basically a strong product with a free trial, Userflow for onboarding, intercom for email onboard and chat support.
All right, so let me maybe summarize it. So the first thing that you got is the user to be able to sign up. So you had authentication, authorization probably built up. Then I'm looking at my notes. So for listeners who are looking on YouTube or Spotify video, if you see me down, I'm just looking at my notes there. And then Sebastian went ahead and built, that any user who's able to sign up to the product automatically gets into the free trial, right? So you build the free trial, the entire trial experience is probably built, that here's a 14-day free trial, and then after 14 days, something else happens. Email goes back to the end user.
After 14 days, it goes into read only unless you activate via Stripe.
And that was a very thoughtful process. And then you did dogfooding. You built Userflow for Userflow and then allowed the customers to use Userflow. That's a very neat idea there. And then you have applied, email-based onboarding or intercom chat and all of that. So those became the three aspects of the things. I'm looking at a few more things that I think in your article on what was the PLG stack that you used. There's a lot of other things that you had, right? You had things like, there's a wait list. I think you built some wait list in the beginning as well. You had some...
Yeah, so going back, it depends on how far you want to go back, right? In the beginning, before we had a ready product, we built a landing page with a waitlist, which is typical, right? That was like the first, just to get some interest. And then we launched it on Product Hunt to get like some initial customers. I would say the customers you typically get on Product Hunt, it's really a needle in a haystack that they will stay around because they're typically very small customers, but they're very good beta customers. So they're very good early adopters. And they will use your product, they will pay for your product, and then, but over time, they are likely not the right fit for your product due to pricing increases and so on. But we still do have some of those early Product Hunt customers on our platform today. Yeah, that was like going really early back. It's like a waitlist, but also then really trying to get as fast to market as possible and then launching it on Product Hunt. And when we launched on Product Hunt, we did have the free trial already. We did charge for the product. We did have intercom for chat and support, and we did have Userflow for own onboarding. So those things I mentioned before, they were already there when we launched on Product Hunt.
All right, let me ask maybe a little more into this. So when you launched on Product Hunt, did you already have a pricing plan so that the users, if they like it, they can pay? Or you had kept it, just tried and give us some feedback?
No, we always believe in charging for the product. We had done some beta testing with some of our friends prior to that, kind of without charging them, but that was a very short period. And really, we believe in getting product to market as fast as possible and charging for the product. If you don't charge for your product, I don't think you're going to get actual feedback. I know freemium is a big part of the PLG world, but I'm not a big believer in freemium myself. I actually see freemium as more of a marketing tool. And I prefer free trial much more, where you have a time-bound premium experience. But of course, a free trial requires that you can actually show the value in those 14 days or how much you give them. So there are definitely products where freemium might make sense, but if you can do a free trial, I would always prefer that. So yeah, we charged from day one. It was a lot less than what we're charging today, but we did charge.
Got it. And so which means that you already created maybe subscription plans on Stripe and then associated all of that and in-app checkouts and all of that, right?
Yeah. So everything was set up with Stripe. I mean, that's one of the advantages of Sebastian having built SaaS businesses before. He knew exactly how to build that baseline foundation with authentication, with payments, free trial, and so on, right? And a lot of that is easy to Stripe.
Correct.
Use Stripe billing, right? So yeah, all of that was set up. We had, similar today, we had like 3 pricing packages: startup, medium, and enterprise. So really the only thing that has evolved is that we've added more features, we've increased the pricing and so on, right? But it was very much the same foundation as we started out.
Makes sense. And if I look at the timeline from the beginning of your conception that, hey, this is what we want to build, to the Product Hunt launch, how long did it take for you? And of course, you have to build the core features and all of that.
Yeah, it depends on how much time you calculate, because Sebastian was working on that other product for a year prior to that. And you can say he did reuse a lot of the stuff he had from that build. So he could reuse a lot of the authentication, billing, and so on. He could reuse from what he had built with that initial product that he wasn't getting traction on. So you can say in some ways it took a year, in some ways it took maybe 6 months or something like that.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's maybe say somewhere between 6 months to a year's time.
Yeah.
And tell our listeners a little more beyond this particular point. You launched on Product Hunt and you started seeing users signing up, some drop off. maybe lots of them being dropped off. How did you know about who these customers are, who these users are, and are they fitting your ICP or not? Getting the feedback and all of that. So what was your customer conversations to be able to latch on to that, hey, this was a good experiment, and then let's go double down on that?
No, I think we didn't start with an ICP, and I think maybe if I had been with Sebastian earlier, we had done that, but we didn't. We started with the use case. So the
Okay.
use case was this user onboarding for SaaS, right? So you can say, who's that going to attract? And if you do a launch on Product Hunt, initially it's probably going to attract mostly founders, right? Who are also just small teams building themselves. So Sebastian was really building this product for himself, right? So you can say the ICP was him. Basically like somebody who wanted to not build this stuff themselves, but wanted a no-code solution for the same, right? So that was we started with a use case, and then you can say the first ICP was really founders of startups. But after the Product Hunt launch, and also after we started doing SEM really early, so doing ads. And again, we started with the use case, not the ICP. So we basically said, okay, user onboarding for SaaS, that was like the use case, right? And we put that out there on SEM, so search engine marketing. We put it out on Product Hunt. And then slowly, by basically sending the marketing of that use case, we started to see who the ICP was. And for us, it's basically a product manager or customer success manager at a SaaS B2B company. So a founder can also be good, but they're typically, if it's a founder, it's a small company, they won't be able to pay as much. That's why our ICP is product manager or customer success manager, because it's then a bit larger company that's basically able to pay more.
All right, so you went from a founder to maybe slightly bigger, 5 to maybe 50 people company who have at least some of these departments already in the formations, if not completely there.
Yeah, I think it's very natural for PLG companies to start small in the market, and then the longer they live, the more they go up market.
Got it. So tell us a little more about your role. As Sebastian was building this, you came into being. How did you change the direction of this particular use case? It looks like you had a large hand in figuring out what the ICP is, figuring out what the target segment is. But how did you get to know about this? Did you start doing some analytics around it? Did you start doing some enrichment? How did you know these are the right people?
Yeah, no, I think this is where I think many companies go wrong. They tend to over-engineer things, over-analyze things. You don't need to do that. As a founder, you trust much more in your gut and what you see. You speak to the customers, you learn. So that's how we realized who our ICP was. It wasn't like a deep analysis or anything like that. We knew who the customers were because we were speaking to the customers on our support channel every day. So we knew it was product managers. We knew it was customer success managers, right? And directors. So we didn't need to do a deep analysis to find out who the ICP is. It was really a market knowledge, right? And what my role was about was not so much about analyzing and deep diving into data, because that can just be a time sink. It was about seeing how can we increase the growth of Userflow, right? So besides from this foundation we had with automated email onboarding, automated in-app onboarding, what do we need to add on top of that? So for instance, I have a CRM, we use HubSpot. So we do have like a pipeline. We auto create all the trials in HubSpot so we can follow along the process. We started looking for product qualified leads. So for us, we kept a quite simple metric, which was if a user spent more than 30 minutes in the product, we considered them a product qualified lead. So we started looking a bit closer on those. I started doing more marketing, you can say, the modern form of marketing, which is really thought leadership and social selling. So when we started Cobalt in 2013, the way we got customers was a lot through outbound, right? Like email and LinkedIn connections, and then just spamming people basically. And I think that worked 10 years ago, but today there's so much noise on those channels. So the new way of reaching people is really doing thought leadership and social selling, as some call it, on LinkedIn, where you basically speak about a topic and you speak about it with authenticity and so on to get attention towards yourself as a person, but also ideally towards your company. And I think what we started speaking about was product-led growth, because Userflow is very much a tool you can use to enhance your product-led growth process. And which was nice, we were very much a product-led company ourselves, so we could speak in an authentic way about how you should build an efficient product-led business. So those were the kind of topics I started talking about on like LinkedIn, on podcasts, etc. And that helped build the brand of Userflow basically.
So maybe let me summarize it for our listeners. So after Product Hunt, you went ahead and figured out what might be the ICP. You had a lot more insights from your support channel, probably using Slack or Discord or something of that sort. You somehow enabled some kind of analytics to help you understand what could be the potential PQL. You mentioned 30 minutes or more somebody has spent, which means that you had some analytics to understand this user spending more time.
We just use LogRocket, which is a session recording tool, but we also have Mixpanel and so on. But we primarily use LogRocket for that analysis. Yes.
Okay, LogRabbit. Okay. And then you started, your acquisition channels were not the typical outbound email or something. You had more involved, which is the LinkedIn webinars, thought leadership conversations, and that became your primary. So let me ask you this thing. So how did you get?
I wouldn't say primary. I just want to add to that because one thing I also mentioned is we do SEM, and still to this day we do SEM. So that is a big part of our marketing too. So combined with the thought leadership, we do search engine marketing on Google, and it's been great for us.
Got it. So SEM plus thought leadership. Could you tell us a little about how did you get your first customers? Were they all from Product Hunt, or the people that you had talked to, they became customers?
Yeah, the very first customers were through our network and users of that other product Sebastian had built, who had asked about the product to us. But then after that, yes, it was from Product Hunt. And then after that, it was from SEM. And then it's just started flowing, word of mouth, branding we did. And yeah, so it's hard to measure word of mouth versus SEO and so on. So the only really the main measurable channel we have is SEM. So we know we get a good chunk from that, but we also get a good chunk from like word of mouth, thought leadership, and SEO.
Got it. And if you may be open to reveal, how much did you spend on SEM? So it's building it, tracking it?
Yeah, it's been an increasing budget we've done over the years. So I'm not going to share the specific number we spend right now, but it's 5 figures and a month.
That's good enough.
5 figures a month. In the beginning, we started with 4 figures, just like maybe $1,000, something like that, really low. And then we just increased our budget every month as we saw it working, basically. So you can start low and then go from there.
Okay, maybe 2 other pieces before we close out on this. The next one is about pricing. How did you figure out what should be the right pricing? Let me give you a little bit of context. So some of your competitors, did not have any transparent pricing at that time, right? You were probably one of the first ones to go out with very transparent pricing, and you had it on the Product Hunt on the day 1 launch as well, but you had it on your marketing website as well, right? How did you go about figuring out what that pricing plan should be, and what experiments did you conduct to improve it, so that you can get the best value to the customers and still, you remain profitable?
So you're right that not all of our competitors had pricing, but some of them did for sure have transparent pricing. So we did look at our competitors. You should always look at your competition when you start doing pricing, just to see where it all fits. And then we used the very traditional startup, pro, enterprise. And that's kind of been our foundation. We've sometimes experimented with having 4 packages, but I think 3 packages is that's the simple, easy model. So if you can get it down to 3 packages, that's great. I think 2 is too little because then you will lose part of your customer base. But the way we build it is basically startup is the entry package. So that's where any customer should be able to go and buy startup, at least our ICPs, and get a significant amount of value from that. At least they should be able to build a basic onboarding with the startup package. So that's how we kind of thought about that package. And then we have Pro, which is the package where you get basically all the features. So you can build pretty much everything and you are more of a pro user. And then Enterprise is only if you need paperwork or security questionnaires. So one thing we've done as part of our product-led process is to make all our security policies available online. We also SOC 2 Type 2. So there's really no reason for you having to do a security questionnaire. So we want to charge for that. If you still want one, even despite us making everything available to you, then we charge for that. So our enterprise package is much more expensive than Pro, and it doesn't give you any features. It just gives you a contract and security questionnaires. So that's meant for true enterprises. So that's basically how we build it. So Startup Pro is credit card, and then Enterprise is the more true enterprise.
Yeah, and to the listeners, we will actually have the links to the pricing pages to Userflow as well. So 3 seems to be optimal for most people that we have talked to. 4 is sometimes too much, too many things to read. 2 or 1 is too little. So for founders who are thinking about putting up some pricing plans, figure out a way to keep it to maybe 3 or less than 3 in the beginning. Anything more than that becomes too cumbersome. One last question, Esben, and I had floated this question on Twitter to find out, how people do things. You went after specific users who were able to sign up to your product, but you also had in-app invitations. So over time, you were able to start selling to accounts. Could you share a little about the transition between a person who joins for the first time, who signs up to your product for the first time, and their company, their organization might want to buy Userflow? So what methods you had in place to have that end user who signed up to your product for the first time is inviting their colleagues, and then as a company, they are paying only once to you?
Yeah, I think one thing that's important and why PLG is becoming important for businesses to handle today is that end users are much more empowered today. End users are trusted to go out and find tools and also get budget for those tools without having to do a larger process around it and so on. So that's the world we play in, which means end users and the ones who signs up for our free trial typically actually have a lot of power already when they go into our free trial. But for the ones who still needs to convince stakeholders, it's all about making, yes, you can allow them to add those stakeholders via the team, invite people to the account, basically, right? That's definitely an important aspect. The other thing we do is you can, without installing anything in your code, you can actually preview Userflow content inside your own product. So somebody who's not a developer can go, that's also great for our onboarding, that they can go and actually build stuff inside their own product. They can preview it, and then they don't have to install the JavaScript snippet until they actually want to do it for end users. So they just preview it with a Chrome extension. And that preview, they can, of course, also then show to stakeholders in a meeting and so on, right? And then third, we make all, as I said, all the necessary documents available. So that's everything from privacy policy. We make sure we're SOC 2 Type 2. We make all our security policies available online. We have a DPA that's available online. All these different things that might be objections in a procurement process, make those available, make them transparent, so a potential end user can find those and share them with their external stakeholders or internal stakeholders. So it's really about those things. Make it easy for the end users to show value to others and to make all the necessary procurement documents available.
That's very well thought through. So make it easy for them to use, get the right aha moments in place at the very outset itself. Let them maybe show it and maybe even flounder it to your managers, your founders, so that they get the aha moment by looking at the app. It's not just, hey, this is a demo, but within the app itself. That's a very well thought through process. I know we are out of time, so thank you, Esben, for a wonderful discussion. I learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners would have learned quite a bit as well. Best of luck for your journey into Beamer. And I know that you'll be taking on a different role. Compliments for the acquisition again. And then, let's keep connected. And to all the listeners, if you have any more success stories like Esben, you would like to maybe request some guests and talk about some topics, please do reach out to us. You can always add it in the show notes, comment it. Again, thanks, a pleasure for hosting. Esben, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you.